Hi, everyone. It's your host, Amy, and welcome to the Winter Blues. I don't know about you, but around here, this past week, we have had every single type of weather just about that you can imagine. Our temperatures have ranged from the teens up to the 50s. It's rained, it's snowed. We've had snow squalls where you can't see even a foot in front of you. We've had beautiful sunshiny days. And I don't know about you, I'm ready for spring. Welcome to Introspection, the podcast about moving from grief to growth. I'm Amy Lindner Lesser, your host. Introspection started out as a podcast about hospitality, innkeeping, and innkeepers. After about a year, I realized that my life and interests have morphed from hospitality to helping others navigate from grief and loss to growth and living. In this new version of Introspection, I will be talking about my personal experiences with loss, and there are quite a few, what I've learned along the way through my professional training, as well as from my coaching experiences. I'll also be bringing in guests to share interesting ideas. So grab a beverage, find a comfy place, take a deep breath, and listen in. I'm ready for all of this to be over and to just be able to sit on my porch and enjoy watching the world wake up from its winter sleep. However, there is something to be said for the winter and for the cocooning or the hibernating that the world does and actually we do. What we do is we spend a lot more time inside, at least if we're in the northern hemisphere, because winter is cold usually. And even if you're in a warm climate like Florida, it's colder. So I'm grateful, I hope you are, for a warm place to live where I have heat. I even am fortunate enough to have a gas fireplace. So my days of lighting wood burning fires are gone. And also I don't have the hot air being sucked out and the cold air coming back in. If you're like me and the shorter days and the longer nights tend to give you what's called SAD, seasonal affective disorder, or what I call the winter blues, there are things that you can do to help get through some of these shorter days. One of the first things that I recommend is a lamp that you can put near wherever it is that you spend the most time. And that lamp helps give you the light that the sun would normally be providing for you. I have one on my desk because I noticed that when the sun sets 4:30, 4:45, all of a sudden my body says, okay, the sun's down, it's time to go to sleep. And then it doesn't wake up. And I don't wake up until the sun starts to shine again, which is 7:30. So by having this special lamp, which I'll put a link into the comments for this, you can purchase and it will help by giving you more daylight. Another thing that you can do is to find ways to get your body moving. Now, if you're in an area where there's snow and ice on the ground, that wouldn't be walking outside. However, you could always do mall walking. The malls, once you get inside, have no weather. They're warm enough or cool enough. You can, just go in a sweatshirt and walk. And the nice thing is that many of them have walking programs before the regular mall hours open. So you might even be able to go at, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning and get a lot of steps in before the crowds come. Something to consider. Another thing is to do some visualizations. I remember when I was in college, and I had no idea that visualizations help you manifest what you're thinking of or what you want. But I remember sitting outside with a friend. It was the middle of the winter, and we were sitting on a bench overlooking the tennis courts. The tennis courts were full of snow. It was probably in the teens, and the two of us were sitting out there having a conversation with our teeth chattering in the middle. Why we didn't go inside to do this, God only knows. I wasn't a teenager, but I was in my early 20s. I just didn't think of things. But what we both did was we started to imagine that we were on a beach and it was warm. The sun was coming down. We could hear the water lapping at the shore. We were watching the birds come. We were walking and looking at shells. We saw lots of people sunbathing. And believe it or not, before long, we both started to feel warmer. So you could do something like that too. I'm not saying that you should be sitting outside to do this, but just to get rid of that. Or imagine that you're in your favorite place and you're doing whatever it is that brings joy into your life. Sometimes when I find myself getting depressed or sad over something, I just say to myself, Amy, it's time to smile. And I make myself smile. And the act of bringing your mouth into a smile and your eyes, whatever they do when you smile, it starts to bring all of those great hormones back into your body. And I find that I'm smiling real not long after. You could also turn on some music, listen to some uplifting music that makes you feel like you want to sing or dance along with it. Like the 20,000, was it the $20,000 period? No. There was the TV show, I don't remember which one, that you got to phone a friend. Do that. Phone somebody you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe someone who you know is going through a tough time. Somehow, for us to reach out to somebody who's having it tougher than we are is good for them, but it also is good for us. It makes our hearts sing. Find activities that you love to do and do them. Try something new, either by yourself or with a friend. Those are things that can also help. One of the things that I try to do every morning is I go and sit on my back porch. It might be for a short time, but I sit and I just get fresh sunlight. Even if it's not a lot of it for a long time, 3, 4, 5 minutes helps. So I have a question for you. How are you challenging yourself to grow this year? We've started a new year. If you've made resolutions, have you kept them? If not, were they realistic? Or are you like me who doesn't bother to make resolutions because I know I don't keep them? But I pick a word for the year. And I know I've told you before, my word for 2024 is bloom. And I am looking for visual representations of flowers blooming, of colors getting bright and blooming. And I'm putting them around me. I have a beautiful painting on the wall behind my computer that's a picture of a garden in springtime. And it's like you're looking through a window because there are lace curtains and you see the grass and a tree. And when I look at that, I feel like spring is here and that I'm blooming. And I'm making sure, doing whatever I can do, that my life is blooming this year. So I'm blooming by reaching out more on Facebook and in the newsletters and offering some groups as well as individual coaching. I'm looking to bloom spiritually and to grow my spiritual self through reading. I'm trying and wanting to bloom personally too. I'm trying to be more visible, which means more podcasts, more Facebook Lives, putting my face out there, offering to do workshops and speaking engagements for people where I can tell people things that I've learned and things that I've found to be true as well as helpful. So, what are you doing that's different? I want to let you know that I have a new book coming out. It's another cooperative book, meaning I'm one of 25 authors in this book. And this one is specifically about grief. It's called The Grief Experience. My chapter is chapter 17, and it's about the death and the loss to me of my best friend of 44 years. And what I do in that is I talk about finding the silver linings in the not so nice experiences that we all have. Part of what being human is. Well, I'm excited that on February 6th, the book will be out and available on Amazon. And there's going to be a book release party on February 9th from 10 to 11 a.m. And I have a big ask. Are you someone who enjoys reading and would like to get an advanced reader's copy of the next book? If so, I'll put a link, and there is a possibility, or the ability, I should say, for you to become part of our launch team. We need people to get a free copy of the digital book and read it and be ready to write a review. And then also on launch day, if you would purchase a Kindle copy or the digital copy for $1.99. Obviously, there will be a paperback copy, but the digital is $1.99. At least in the United States, it should be easy for anybody to be able to pick up. And then to write a review. It's important to me and to the other writers that we get people to read and write reviews and purchase on that date so that we can make best-selling list. So the link, if you're interested, I'll say it, and then again, I'll put it in the notes, is laura-defranco.com/grief-experience-launch-team/. It's a long one, which is why we'll put it in the notes. Also, something really exciting that's part of this book is that on March 9th, a Saturday, starting at noon Eastern Time, we will be having a grief experience conference. And it doesn't mean that you're going to go through grief again. What it means is there will be presentations about different types of grief and different methodologies for being able to get through it. And I will be presenting on moving from survivor to thriver mode or mindset. Really important. Being a survivor means you're barely surviving. You're going through the motions. You may be just almost in a daze and you're walking around. And it's still basically a victim mindset. Whereas when you decide to be a thriver, everything's not going to be wonderful all the time. However, you've made that shift to saying, I'm going to have a positive outlook on my life. And I will give you some suggestions of things that you could be doing. And hopefully, it'll be a fun day. This is mid-January. So the holidays have come and gone. And I'm curious, how did you handle them? Were they more difficult than in the past or easier than you expected? What do you think made them that way? You know me, I love journaling. So, my suggestion for you is to take out some paper or a journal and think about it and jot down your ideas. Were there any things that you're aware that you did that made them more difficult or easier? And have you thought about what possible changes you will make for the next big holidays? It's never too early to start planning. And on that, the next holiday that comes up is Valentine's Day. Depending on your grief, it could be one of those holidays that stirs up a lot of emotions. And that's okay. The reality is that grief never goes away. We learn to live with the grief and have it sort of by our side, hopefully playing less of a part in our day-to-day lives. But when certain events or holidays or reminders come up, they trigger our emotions. And so it's best to plan and think in advance. I remember one of the first Valentines after my husband passed away. I didn't want to sit at home alone. Everybody who was staying with me, because I had the inn at the time, everybody there was there with a partner, and it was a very romantic evening for them. They all went out to restaurants. So what I did was I called a friend and said, hey, would you go out to dinner with me? I don't really want to be alone and reminded that I don't have somebody special in my life right now, but I could use a friend, and friends are special. So she and I went out to dinner. We went out early and we had a lovely, lovely time. It was a change in my routine, and it allowed me to create a different memory. So think about what you can do. Will you go and visit somebody in a nursing home, for example, who may be all alone? I remember my grandmother talking about how hard it was for her, or difficult it was for her as she aged, that so many of her friends were dying, and that she had fewer and fewer people surrounding her with love and attention. And so sometimes I go and I read to people who are in nursing homes. I go and I just sit and talk and listen. If they're able to share with me some of their memories, I will ask, what do they remember about Valentine's Day or about their sweetheart? Were there any special things? It always is nice to share with somebody else. So I'm going to leave you with the thought, what can you do to set yourself up for success? Thanks for listening. And remember, if you or anyone you know is navigating a life transition and would like some help with that, I'm available. I offer both one-on-one coaching as well as the Grief Recovery Method program, which can be done either by in a group or on a one-on-one. They're different and they both are excellent ways to walk through and navigate your grief. So reach out to me, hit the link or DM me to set up a discovery call. Thanks. Have a good rest of the January month. If you liked what you heard on this podcast and want to hear more, please follow us and tell your friends. You can also find me on Facebook at Amy Lindner Lesser, Grief to Growth Life Coaching, and on LinkedIn at Amy Lindner Lesser.